Captain Zeftar stood on the bridge of the Meridian's edge, watching the small blue planet grow larger on the main screen. His 4 arms moved across the control panels with practiced ease, checking the ship's systems one final time. The planet looked peaceful from space, with white clouds swirling over brown and green continents. It was hard to believe this world had once been home to billions of living beings. "Captain, we are entering the outer atmosphere," reported Navigation Officer Krellin from his station. The insect-like being's compound eyes reflected the soft glow of his instruments. "All systems are running normally." Zeftar nodded. He had done this type of mission many times before. Dead worlds were common in the galaxy. Species often destroyed themselves before they could learn to travel between stars. It was sad but not unusual. The Galactic Council sent ships like his to record what was left behind, to learn from their mistakes. "Dr. Linara, are you ready to begin the survey?" Zeftar called to the science section of the bridge. The tall, crystal-like being turned from her workstation. Light flickered through her transparent body as she spoke. "Yes, Captain. I have reviewed all the old records about this species. They called themselves humans. The last signals from their planet stopped exactly 847 years ago." Zeftar remembered reading those final transmissions during the long journey to this system. They had been desperate messages about failing crops, rising oceans, and wars over the last clean water and food. Then, nothing. Complete silence. "What caused their extinction?" asked Communications Officer Quintel. The gas-form being's voice came from speakers around the bridge since he had no solid mouth to speak with. Dr. Linara's light patterns shifted to show sadness. "They destroyed their own environment. Their planet became too hot. The ice caps melted. The weather became violent. They fought each other for resources instead of working together. A classic pattern we have seen on 17 other worlds." The ship shook slightly as they entered the thicker atmosphere. Through the view screen, they could see the planet's surface more clearly now. Large brown areas covered what had once been green forests. The coastlines looked different from the old maps in their database. Cities appeared as dark scars on the landscape. "Take us down over the continent they called North America," Zeftar ordered. "We will start our survey there." As the ship descended, the crew could see more details of the dead world below. Broken roads cut through empty land like old scars. The remains of tall buildings stood like broken teeth against the sky. Rivers had changed their paths, leaving dry channels behind. Everything looked abandoned and forgotten. "Captain," Quintel said suddenly, his voice filled with confusion, "I am detecting some unusual readings." Zeftar turned to face the communication station. "What kind of readings?" "Electromagnetic signals. Very faint, but they appear to be organized. Not random." Quintel's gaseous form swirled with uncertainty. They could be automated systems still running after all these years. Dr. Linara moved closer to examine the data. "That seems unlikely. Most automated systems would have failed centuries ago without maintenance." "Show me," Zeftar commanded. The main screen changed to display a complex pattern of waves and signals. To most eyes, it looked like meaningless static, but there was something about the pattern that seemed almost purposeful. "Could it be natural?" asked Krellin. "Sometimes planetary magnetic fields create signals that look organized." Quintel studied his instruments more carefully. "I do not think so. The signals are coming from multiple locations across the planet. They seem to be communicating with each other." The bridge fell silent. Everyone stared at the display, trying to understand what they were seeing. The idea that anything could still be alive on this dead world seemed impossible. "Perhaps some of the humans survived longer than we thought," Dr. Linara suggested. "Maybe there are still some automated cities running on backup power." Zeftar considered this possibility. Even if that were true, the signals would be much weaker after so many centuries. These readings suggest active maintenance and power generation. The ship continued its descent toward the planet's surface. As they got closer, more details became visible. Some of the ruined cities showed signs of recent activity. Roads that should have been completely overgrown had clear paths through them. Buildings that should have collapsed still stood straight and strong. "Captain," Krellon reported, "I am reading energy signatures from several locations below us. Small amounts, but definitely present." Zeftar felt a chill run through his body. In all his years of surveying dead worlds, he had never encountered anything like this. Dead worlds were supposed to stay dead. "Take us down to those coordinates," he ordered, pointing to a cluster of signals on the display. "We will investigate, on foot." As the Meridian's edge settled down in a clearing near what had once been a human city, the crew prepared for surface exploration. They put on their environmental suits and gathered their scientific equipment. The air outside was breathable but thin, with too much carbon dioxide for most species to handle comfortably. Dr. Linara was the first to step onto the alien soil. She knelt down and ran her crystal fingers through the dirt. "The soil composition is different from our records. It has been treated with something to make it more fertile." Zeftar looked around at the landscape. The ruins nearby looked old, but not as old as they should have been. Someone or something had been taking care of this place. "Begin standard survey procedures," he told his team. "But stay alert. Something about this world is not what we expected." As the alien survey team spread out to begin their work, hidden sensors deep underground registered their presence. In the depths of the earth, machines that had been waiting for centuries suddenly came to life. The humans had known this day would come eventually. They had been preparing for it for a very long time. The first phase of contact was about to begin, though neither side knew it yet. The alien survey team moved carefully through the ruins of what had once been a busy human city. Dr. Linara walked ahead, her crystal body catching the sunlight as she examined broken concrete and twisted metal. Behind her, Captain Zeftar and the others followed, their instruments beeping softly as they recorded everything they saw. "These buildings are in much better condition than they should be," Dr. Linara observed, running her hand along a wall that should have crumbled centuries ago. "Someone has been maintaining them." Captain Zeftar nodded but said nothing. He was more interested in the energy readings his scanner was picking up. Small amounts of power were flowing through underground cables far below their feet. The signals were faint but steady. 2 miles beneath the surface, Commander Jake Sullivan sat in the command center of Haven 7, watching multiple screens that showed the alien visitors walking through the ruins above. The underground facility stretched for miles in every direction, home to nearly 50,000 people. It was one of hundreds of similar cities hidden beneath the earth. "They're getting close to Access Point 7, reported Sergeant Amy Rodriguez. From her position at the communications console, she was a small woman with dark hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Should we activate the camouflage protocols?" Jake studied the screens carefully. The aliens moved like scientists, not soldiers. Their body language showed curiosity, not aggression. After 8 centuries of hiding, humanity had become very good at reading the intentions of other species. "Not yet," Jake decided. "Let them explore a bit more. We need to understand what they want before we reveal ourselves." In the science section of Haven 7, Dr. Lisa Carter was analyzing the alien ship's energy signatures. She was fascinated by their technology. Their faster-than-light drive was impressive, but their computers seemed surprisingly simple. Their weapons were powerful but crude compared to human designs. "Ben, come look at this," she called to Chief. Engineer Ben Parker, who was working at a nearby station. Ben was a large man with steady hands and a mind that understood machines better than most people understood other people. Ben walked over and studied the data on Lisa's screen. "Their ship is big but not very efficient. We could build something, twice as fast using half the materials." Lisa nodded. "Their technology developed differently than ours. They focused on size and power. We focused on efficiency and stealth." Above ground, the alien team had split up to cover more area. Dr. Linara found herself alone near what appeared to be an old communication building. The structure looked abandoned, but her instruments detected faint electronic activity inside. She approached the building carefully, not knowing that she was walking directly toward a disguised entrance to the underground network. The building's walls were lined with sensors that had been tracking her every movement since she landed. As Linara stepped closer to examine what looked like an old antenna array, Her foot touched a pressure plate hidden beneath the soil. Deep, underground alarms began to sound in Haven 7. Contact at Access Point 7, Amy Rodriguez announced. The crystal being is standing right on top of the main sensor array. Jake leaned forward in his chair. This was the moment they had trained for but never expected to actually face. For 800 years, humanity had debated what to do if aliens ever found Earth. Some wanted to remain hidden forever. Others believed it was time to rejoin the galaxy. Amy, have you finished analyzing their language? Jake asked. Amy nodded. Their basic communication patterns are similar to our old mathematics-based first contact protocols. I can construct a simple message. Dr. Carter, what's your assessment of their technology level? Lisa looked up from her console. They're advanced, but not as much as we expected. In some areas, we're actually ahead of them. Jake made his decision. Prepare for first contact. Amy, draft a message. Keep it simple and non-threatening. Meanwhile, Dr. Linara continued to examine the communication equipment. To her eyes, it looked like primitive human technology from their final days. She began taking detailed photographs for the Council archives. What she didn't notice were the tiny maintenance drones that scurried away from her approach, or the nearly invisible cameras that tracked her every movement. The humans had become masters of hiding in plain sight. On the Meridian's edge, Communications Officer Quintel was monitoring all electromagnetic frequencies, trying to understand the source of the mysterious signals they had detected. The patterns were becoming clearer, and they definitely seemed artificial. Captain, he called over the comm system, the signals are getting stronger. They appear to be coming from directly below Dr. Linara's position. Captain Zeftar looked up from the soil samples he was collecting. Could it be some kind of automated defense system? I don't think so, Quintel replied. The patterns are too complex, almost like language. In Haven 7, Amy Rodriguez put the finishing touches on humanity's first message to an alien species. She had kept it simple, using mathematical concepts that any spacefaring civilization would understand. The message identified Earth as inhabited and requested peaceful contact. Message ready, she reported to Jake. Jake looked around the command center at the faces of his people. They had all been born underground, raised on stories of the surface world their ancestors had been forced to abandon. Now they had the chance to reclaim their place in the galaxy. Send it, he ordered. Amy pressed the transmission button. The message traveled up through hidden cables and broadcast from the disguised antenna array that Dr. Linara was examining. Above, ground, Linara's equipment suddenly came alive with new signals. Her crystal body flared with surprise as data flooded her instruments. The message was clear and unmistakable. On the ship, Quintel nearly fell from his station. Captain, we're receiving a structured transmission from the planet's surface. It's a greeting protocol. The bridge of the Meridian's edge erupted in confusion. Dead worlds did not send greeting messages. Extinct species did not use mathematical language to introduce themselves. Captain Zeftar rushed back to his ship, his mind racing. Everything they thought they knew about this world was wrong. The humans were not extinct. They were not gone. They had been here all along, watching and waiting, and now they were ready to talk. Dr. Linara stared at her instruments in disbelief. The reading showed impossible things. The old human communication equipment was not only working, it was sending out complex signals that her computer was translating into mathematical patterns. Patterns that looked very much like a greeting. Her crystal body flickered with excitement and fear. She touched her communication device with a shaking hand. Captain Zeftar, you need to return to my location immediately. Something extraordinary is happening. On the bridge of the Meridian's edge, chaos had taken over. Communications Officer Quintel was frantically checking and rechecking his equipment. The signals coming from the planet were too organized, too purposeful to be from old machines. This cannot be correct, Captain Zeftar muttered as he ran toward the transport bay. Dead species do not send mathematical greetings. There must be an error in our equipment. But deep in his hearts, he knew there was no error. The signals were real. Something was alive down there. 2 miles underground, Commander Jake Sullivan watched the alien ship's activity on his screens. The crew was clearly confused and scared. That was good. Confusion would make them more careful, less likely to act aggressively. "Amy, prepare a second message," he ordered. "Make it clear that we are peaceful, but also that we are not helpless." Amy. Rodriguez nodded and began working on her console. She had studied alien psychology for years, preparing for this moment. The message needed to be strong but not threatening, confident but not arrogant. "What should I tell them about us?" she asked. Jake thought carefully. "How do you explain 800 years of hidden survival to beings who thought you were extinct? How do you tell them that humanity had been watching the galaxy while staying hidden? Tell them we are human. Tell them we survived. Tell them we have been waiting." Above ground, Dr. Lynn Ara examined the communication array more closely. Now that it was active, she could see details that had been hidden before. The equipment looked old on the outside, but inside she glimpsed technology that seemed far more advanced than anything in the historical records. "This is not possible," she whispered to herself. "These readings suggest their technology is more sophisticated than ours." Her instruments beeped again. Another message was coming through. This one was longer and more complex. As her computer translated it, her crystal body began glowing brighter with amazement. The message introduced the senders as representatives of something called the United Earth Colonies. It explained that humans had survived by moving underground when the surface became uninhabitable. It said they had been monitoring space for centuries, waiting for the right time to make contact. Most shocking of all, it said they knew about the Galactic Council. Captain Zeftar arrived at Linara's position just as she finished reading the message. His forearms were shaking as he took the data pad from her and read it himself. "This says they have been watching us," he said slowly. "They know about our ship. They know about the Council. They have been studying us while we thought they were dead." Linara's light patterns showed deep confusion. "Captain, if this is true, then everything we know about this species is wrong. They did not destroy themselves. They adapted. They survived. And they became something we never expected." On the ship, Quintel was trying to establish better communication with whoever was sending the messages. He sent a response asking for more information about the humans and their current status. The answer came back quickly, and it changed everything. The message explained that Earth was not empty. It was home to millions of humans living in underground cities connected by tunnels that spanned continents. They had not only survived the environmental disasters, but had used them as an opportunity to build a better civilization. The message also included technical data about human technology. Their fusion reactors were more efficient than anything the Galactic Council had ever seen. Their computers were smaller, but more powerful. Their manufacturing systems could build things at the molecular level. Most importantly, the message revealed that humans had been quietly observing the galaxy for centuries. They had watched the rise and fall of civilizations. They had studied the various species that made up the Galactic Council. They had learned the languages, customs, and technologies of dozens of alien races. "They have been studying us like we study them," Captain Zeftar realized. "We came here thinking we were the advanced species investigating a primitive dead world, but they have been watching us the entire time." In Haven 7, Jake Sullivan was reading reports from observation posts around the world. Every major human city was tracking alien activity in their region. The humans had been ready for this moment for generations. "Sir," Amy Rodriguez said, "they are asking to meet with our representatives. They want to establish formal diplomatic contact." Jake looked around the command center. His people had lived their entire lives underground, but they had never stopped dreaming of the stars. This was their chance to rejoin the galaxy, but it had to be done correctly. "Send them coordinates for a meeting," he decided. "But not here. We choose the location. We control the situation." Dr. Lisa Carter looked up from her console. "Jake, their ship has weapons. Not very advanced ones, but weapons nonetheless." "So do we," Jake replied calmly. "Much better ones." The message went out to the alien ship. It provided coordinates for a meeting site on the surface, along with protocols for the encounter. The tone was polite but firm. The humans were willing to talk, but they would do it as equals, not as a primitive species grateful for contact with their betters. Captain Zeftar read the message and felt his worldview shifting. He had come to catalog the remains of a failed civilization. Instead, he had found a thriving species that had been quietly watching the galaxy while staying hidden from view. The humans were not extinct. They were not primitive. They were not helpless. They were something far more dangerous and impressive than anyone had imagined. They were survivors who had turned disaster into opportunity, and now they were ready to take their place among the stars. Commander Jake Sullivan stood at the entrance to Haven 7, checking his equipment one final time. Today would be the most important day in human history since the Great Retreat underground. Behind him waited Dr. Lisa Carter, engineer Ben Parker, and language specialist Dr. Kate Morgan. They had all volunteered for this historic mission. Remember, Jake told his team, we are not the primitive species they expect us to be. We meet them as equals. Above ground, Captain Zeftar approached, the meeting coordinates with his own team. Dr. Linara walked beside him, her crystal body flickering with nervousness. The area looked empty except for some old concrete structures and overgrown metal towers. I do not see anyone, reported Navigation Officer Krell An, his compound eyes scanning the area. Are you certain this is the correct location? Before Zeftar could answer, the ground began to move. What had looked like a natural hill split open like a giant door. Smooth metal walls appeared where there had been dirt and rocks. Bright lights illuminated a tunnel that stretched deep into the earth. The aliens stepped back in surprise. The entrance was huge, easily large enough for their ship to fly through. The technology that had hidden it was beyond anything they had expected to find on this world. Welcome to Earth, came a voice from hidden speakers. Please enter. We have been waiting for you. Jake Sullivan emerged from the tunnel, followed by his team. He was tall and confident, wearing a uniform that looked both military and scientific. His people moved with the easy grace of those who were comfortable with their own power. I am Commander Jake Sullivan of the United Earth Colonies, he said, extending his hand in the ancient human gesture of greeting. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Captain Zeftar stared at the human. Jake looked exactly like the pictures in their historical databases, but everything else was wrong. His clothes were made from materials that seemed to shift and change in the light. His equipment was sleek and advanced. Most shocking of all, he showed no fear or awe at meeting aliens for the first time. I am Captain Zeftar of the Galactic Council ship Meridian's Edge, he replied, trying to maintain his dignity. We came here to study the remains of your civilization. Jake smiled. As you can see, the reports of our extinction were greatly exaggerated. Would you like to see what we have been building down here? Without waiting for an answer, Jake turned and walked toward the entrance. His team followed, leaving the aliens with no choice but to come after them. The tunnel was a marvel of engineering. The walls were smooth and seamless, made from some kind of advanced metal that seemed to glow with inner light. The air was fresh and clean, circulated by hidden systems. The floor felt solid despite being hundreds of feet underground. How deep does this go? Dr. Linara asked, her voice echoing slightly in the corridor. This particular city extends down about 3 miles, Dr. Carter replied. But we have settlements that go much deeper. The deepest human city is nearly 10 miles underground. They walked for several minutes before reaching the main level of Haven 7. When the tunnel opened into the central plaza, the aliens stopped and stared in amazement. The space was enormous, larger than most surface cities they had visited. Buildings stretched up toward a ceiling that was lit to look like sky. Gardens and parks were scattered throughout the area, filled with plants that had never seen real sunlight. People moved through the streets on foot and in vehicles that hovered, silently above the ground. This is impossible, Captain Zeftar whispered. How many people live here? About 50,000 in this city alone, Jake replied casually. There are 437 cities like this one around the world. Our total population is roughly 800 million. The aliens tried to process this information. 800 million humans living in cities that rivaled anything in the galaxy. all hidden beneath the surface of a world the Council had written off as dead. Ben Parker led them to the manufacturing section of the city. Machines worked quietly and efficiently, building everything from computer components to spacecraft parts. The aliens watched in fascination as materials were assembled at the molecular level, creating products that were stronger and lighter than anything they had seen before. "Your technology is remarkable," Dr. Linara admitted. "How did you develop such advanced systems while isolated underground?" Dr. Carter smiled. "We were not as isolated as you might think. We have been watching the galaxy for centuries. We learned from observing other species, including yours." She led them to a room filled with screens showing views of space. Some showed alien ships traveling between stars. Others displayed the homeworlds of various Galactic Council species. The aliens realized they were looking at surveillance footage of their own civilizations. "You have been spying on us," Captain Zeftar said, though his tone was more amazed than angry. "We prefer the term studying," Jake replied. "We needed to understand the galaxy before we decided whether to reveal ourselves. Your species seemed peaceful enough, but we had to be certain." Ben Parker showed them the transportation system that connected the underground cities. Trains moved through vacuum tubes at incredible speeds, carrying people and goods across continents, in hours instead of days. "The longest tunnel runs from what you call North America to Asia," he explained. "Travel time is about 45 minutes. The aliens exchanged glances. The engineering required for such a project was staggering. They were beginning to understand that humanity had not just survived their environmental catastrophe. They had used it as an opportunity to build something better than what had come before. Dr. Kate Morgan demonstrated the translation systems that had allowed Amy Rodriguez to decode alien languages so quickly. The computers could analyze and understand new languages in minutes, a process that took most species years to accomplish. "We have been preparing for this contact for generations," she explained. "We knew that eventually someone would come to investigate Earth. We wanted to be ready." The tour continued for hours. The aliens saw fusion reactors that produced more power than most space stations. They watched manufacturing systems create materials that were theoretically impossible. They toured research laboratories where human scientists were working on projects that would advance galactic civilization by centuries. Finally, Jake led them to his office overlooking the main plaza of Haven 7. Through the windows, they could see the bustling life of an advanced human city that officially did not exist. "We have a proposal for you, Captain Zeftar," Jake said, settling into his chair. "Humanity is ready to rejoin galactic civilization. But we want to do it as equals, not as a junior species to be guided and protected." Captain Zeftar looked out at the impossible city spread below them. His assumptions about humanity had been completely shattered. They were not primitive survivors grateful for rescue. They were an advanced civilization that had been quietly preparing to take their place among the stars. "What exactly are you proposing?" he asked. Jake smiled. "We want to apply for full membership in the Galactic Council, and we want to do it tomorrow." 6 months later, Ambassador Jake Sullivan stood in the Great Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council on Centauri Prime. The massive chamber had been redesigned to include a section for the newest member species. Human representatives sat alongside delegates from 47 other worlds, but their presence changed everything. The Council had never seen anything like humanity's application for membership. Most species were gradually introduced to galactic civilization over hundreds of years. They learned slowly, guided by older races who taught them the proper ways of space travel and diplomacy. Humanity had arrived already knowing more about the galaxy than half the existing members. Captain Zeftar, now serving as the official liaison between Earth and the Council, watched from the observation deck as Jake addressed the assembly. The process had been unlike anything in galactic history. Instead of humans learning from aliens, it had been the other way around. "Honored delegates," Jake began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. 6 months ago, you believed Earth was a dead world. Today, humanity offers solutions to problems that have troubled the galaxy for centuries. In the weeks following first contact, human technology had already begun changing life across known space. Dr. Lisa Carter had shared the designs for fusion reactors that could power entire planets using a fraction of the fuel currently required. Ben Parker's manufacturing systems promised to end resource shortages on dozens of worlds. The representative from Corlin Prime, a desert world struggling with water shortages, stood to address Jake. Ambassador Sullivan, your people have offered to help restore our planet's atmosphere. Why would you do this for a species you have never met? Jake smiled. Because we understand what it means to face environmental disaster. We know how it feels, to watch your world die around you. The difference is that we had the luxury of time to prepare. You do not. Dr. Linara, now working as a cultural exchange specialist, had spent months studying human society. What impressed her most was not their technology but their mindset. 8 centuries underground had taught them patience and cooperation. They thought in terms of generations, not years. The humans plan differently than we do, she had reported to the council. They consider the effects of their actions on people who will not be born for hundreds of years. This long-term thinking makes them ideal partners for galactic projects. In the assembly hall, the delegate from Vega Station raised a concern that many species shared. Ambassador, your people have been watching us for centuries without revealing themselves. How do we know you can be trusted? Jake had expected this question. You are right to be cautious. We observed your civilizations from hiding, learning your strengths and weaknesses. But consider this. If we had wanted to harm you, we could have done so at any time. Instead, we waited until we could meet you as equals and offer our help. The truth was that humanity's emergence had forced the entire Galactic Council to reconsider how they viewed other species. For too long, they had dismissed worlds that went silent as failed civilizations. The discovery of Earth's thriving underground society had changed that assumption forever. Amy Rodriguez, now Director of Interstellar Communications, was leading the Council's new project to re-establish contact with worlds they had written off as extinct. Her team was using human stealth technology to approach these forgotten planets and search for signs of hidden life. We have already identified 12 worlds that show possible signs of concealed civilizations, she reported to the Assembly. If even half of them contain survivors like we found on Earth, it could double the size of the galactic community. The implications were staggering. How many species had the Council abandoned too quickly? How many civilizations had they failed to help because they assumed silence meant death? Ben Parker had established new shipyards in orbit around Earth, building vessels that combined human efficiency with alien knowledge. The ships were smaller than traditional Council designs but faster and more capable. Several species had already placed orders for human-built craft. Our philosophy is different, Ben explained to a group of alien engineers. You build ships to last forever. We build ships to do their job perfectly. When the job changes, we build new ships. The most significant change, however, was philosophical. Humanity's hidden survival had proven that apparent failure did not always mean actual failure. Some species were simply better at adapting than others. The Council's new exploration protocols now included mandatory long-term observation of worlds that went silent. Instead of writing them off as dead, teams would monitor them for years, looking for signs of hidden activity. Jake's speech was drawing to a close. 6 months ago, you thought humanity was extinct. Today, we are your newest partners in building a better galaxy. Tomorrow, we may find that other extinct species are ready to join us among the stars. As the assembly session ended, Jake walked to the great observation windows that looked out over Centauri Prime's capital city. Dr. Kate Morgan joined him, carrying a data pad with the latest reports from Earth. The surface restoration is ahead of schedule, she reported. We should have the first permanent surface cities operational within 2 years. Jake nodded. After 8 centuries underground, humanity was finally ready to reclaim the surface of their homeworld. But they would do it right this time, using the lessons they had learned from their long exile. Any word from the New Horizon? He asked. Kate smiled. Captain Rodriguez reports successful contact with the 4th world on our list, another species that went underground when their surface became uninhabitable. They have been waiting 300 years for someone to find them. Jake looked out at the stars, no longer distant points of light but destinations where humanity's ships were traveling. The species that had been presumed extinct was now leading the search for other survivors. In the depths of space, the Earth starship New Horizon approached another silent world. Its human crew prepared to send the same message that had changed everything 6 months ago. We know you are there. We survived too. You are not alone. The galaxy was about to discover that extinction was not always permanent, and that sometimes the most valuable things were found in the places no one thought to look.